Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ila. Thank you for joining us. And yes, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. I can see that you're smiling and giggling already.
Well, somehow it has come to stay. We call it Lover's Day. And love, right from when we were young chaps, even as singles, you look forward to this day sort of to hang out with friends and to take out your girlfriend, out on a date. And
yeah,
so,
talking about dates, I saw an ad about this new restaurant that is opening in Abuja. They called it the Burgundy. And there's going to be a 12-course meal for a couple, and it's going to go for $1,000.
wow. And you could see that, entrepreneurs are really cashing in on this.
Yeah, they say they're going to source all the ingredients from all over the continent. And Abuja is such a place that you can actually thrive doing that.
Give it all kinds of hype. And guess what? You'll be raking in a lot of money and cashing out, as they say. So it's, we'll talk about that much later on the program. Take a look at the history of Valentine. Where did it even come from? How did we get to start celebrating Valentine, even though it's not recognized officially by government? But again, socially speaking, it's something that a lot of people recognize, and they, a lot, especially ladies, they look forward to. Well,
is it just ladies, Ayuba? Is it just ladies? It's not just ladies.
I mean, it's more of a ladies thing, really, because I've not heard a lot of men talk about Valentine's Day.
Seriously?
Because mostly it's associated with spending, and not many men really want to spend during this period, So we'll get to talk about that much more. Women, do you love flowers? Because
no,
that's one of the things that is
African women, we don't love flowers. We love money instead.
Well, we'll get to talk about that, on the program today. And of course, we'll be talking about central bank's decision to end the issuance of dollars to banks and how that will have an impact on our economy. And of course, the dailies on Daybreak, as usual, we'll be looking at that, and today in history and much more on the program.
Well, before that, let's take a look at some of the news highlights for today. We're beginning with security operatives have repelled an attack at Hayangada of Shika Ward in Giwa local government area of Kaduna State when bandits invaded the area on Friday night. Reports say the attackers, who arrived in small number, were repelled by an already stationed security outfit in the area, killing one of the bandits during a gun battle while others fled. Giwa local government have continuously been terrorized by bandits in recent days, which would mostly flee to the area as a result of security bombardment in Zamfara and Katsina State. Shika Ward is also the seat of the ABU Teaching Hospital and National Animal Production Research Institute, housing many staff of both the institute and ABU Zaria. Reports say the security personnel also succeeded in rescuing a staff of National Animal Production Research Institute, Shika, identified as Katung and his 2 children.
All right, now, French forces have killed dozens of fighters in Burkina Faso linked to deadly attacks this week in neighboring Benin, whose victims included a Frenchman. The French-led Barkhane force in the Sahel region engaged its air intelligence capacities to locate the armed group responsible for the attacks before carrying out air attacks that killed 40 fighters. The Frenchman had been among the 9 people killed this week in 2 attacks on park rangers in the W National Park, a wildlife reserve in Benin's remote north bordering troubled Niger and Burkina Faso. 2 roadside bombs killed 5 park rangers, 1 park official, 1 soldier, and a French trainer on Tuesday. 2 days later, another park official was killed in an explosion.
And in sports, Nigeria's D Tigers defeated Mali 7-3 to 69 on Sunday to qualify for the 2022 FIBA Women's World Cup slated for Sydney, Australia. D Tigers had on Friday beat world number 5 ranked team France 67 to 65. The reigning African champions had put up a strong resistance but bowed to the superior power of China in their opening game, losing 76 to 90 to the 7th ranked team in the world on Thursday. However, the team led by coach Hewley did just enough in their second game against France as the D Tigers rallied back from a 17-point deficit in the first quarter to snatch a win and book their second consecutive World Cup outing with a game to spare.
All right, that's that for the news highlights. Now let's take a look at the events that made history on this day in our world. Take a look. Well, there you have it. Today, all about Valentine's. We are also seeing today in history, they call it the Valentine's Massacre occurred on this day. And so before the day Valentine's Day came to be, there was a lot of fight, really, a lot of struggle, because at the time, in history, according to history, Emperor Claudius II was not really comfortable with Christian marriages, in those days. And so there's this tradition in the Roman Empire about the Feast of Lupercia that happens usually between 13th to 15th of February. And, it's a tradition where usually you see, men and women, being coupled up, together. So it's more like a pagan tradition, kind of. And so when you have Saint Valentine, who is a priest that usually bring couples together and get them married, like officially Christian marriage, it became a big issue. So Gladys, ordered the execution of Saint Valentine.
So we can say behind all of the love, glittery and glamour, there's a bit of a dark side to the whole issue of Valentine.
Yes, there is. I mean, mainly because of, people like Valentine, the sacrifices they made to, lovers, basically, is part of the reasons why the Roman emperor, after Claudius II, now decided to recognize this day, 14th of February, as the official day to replace this feast, this pagan feast, in the Roman Empire, so that people can, much more identify with love, share love with friends and family and all of that. So a whole lot of things happened, really.
Quite a number of things happened. And
Yes.
we're going to be talking about that later as the show progresses. We're going to be having a philosopher who's going to talk to us about love.
Yes, and we'll be looking at, what's the significance of this? What's the interpretation of love? What does love really means, in our world today? Has it changed, from the meaning that
I think it has changed. It has changed,
I think it has changed, really, too, because, as the society evolved, a lot of values now, are being eroded. The values that were cherished before now, values of honesty, humility, passion, and loving people for who they are, really. These days, I'm not sure if people really love people.
Please don't mention money, because I know you're going to mention money.
I'm definitely going to go there. I mean, if not money, people tie a lot to money these days.
Money is important.
It is important, but it looks like the society as a whole is trading, certain values for money. Values that keeps humanity together. Is now being eroded, and it's really a big concern because you cannot tie everything to money. Life is not all about money. Money is very important
Very, very,
very important. But again, you know, there are certain things that money really can't buy. You know, so if you read some of the stories about lovers in the past, and even some of the movies that we watch today, they look like movies, but they are real. If you really dig deep and think, you know, very thoroughly, you would see that there are certain things that money cannot buy, really. Money, well, we'll talk more about that. It's a bit controversial, but we'll
And
talk
I
more.
think we're going to give our paper reviewer just a moment to talk about that, because she has been giggling things, and I would love to hear her say something about it.
Yes. She'll be talking to us. We have Zainab Okinu in the studio. She is the chairman editorial board, Blueprint newspaper, and she is our reviewer for today. Well, before we proceed, let's get your own thought about the Valentine's Day. Briefly. Briefly, yes.
You want to put me on the spot. Good morning, viewers.
Yes.
Well, I think what matters is the symbolism. The symbolism of that Valentine, the Saint Valentine that was killed, which in a way was like, and declaring this holiday, declaring today as Lovers' Day is it's like paying tribute to him in trying to bring people together in the name of love. So that's the only way I can look at it. But what the society has turned it into is a different thing entirely. So for those who want to celebrate, yeah, it's okay. Good to celebrate love.
True. Well.
Ask for love, I mean, is what keeps humanity. It's good for the heart.
Yes, very true.
Love is good for the heart.
I think that's the
I
most
love that.
important.
Love is good for the heart.
Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, it's love that makes us human, isn't it? I mean, if you cannot love, then I doubt your humanness,
Right.
if there's anything like that. All right, now let's take a look at, you know, other things on the program, which is the dailies on Daybreak, shortly after this breather. Please stay.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Now we'll go straight to the paper's review. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and we have quite interesting stories, really. 2023, again, on the front page is the lead story. It says, moves to draft Emefiele thicken, and the writer says, Buhari's men pushing CBN governor. He won't go anywhere. Group begins nationwide mobilization. Don't distract him, Apex Bank is saying. So, yes. So, we'll get to see, I mean, some of the names that are being thrown out these days for the presidential race. You wonder why and how people come about this, even people who do not, you know, never showed any interest, you know, in political race before. We'll take a look at now the pictorial, shows you dignitaries in Sokoto to condole with the Sokoto State Government and the Sultanate Council over the death of Magajin Garin Sokoto Alhaji Hassan Ahmed Dambaba, who died at the weekend. And then below that, you'd see also property market thrives in Maiduguri as residents decry rent hike. Now, at the top there, just above the lead story, APC convention, sale of forms begins amidst zoning controversy. You'd also find private sector alliance raises 100 billion naira to fight insecurity. FG says Nigeria's social security system poor, seeks ILO's intervention. At the very bottom, the story says housewife found slaughtered in Kano. Reps summon NNPC GMD over 1.93 billion naira charter contract. ASU to decide on strike today. So these are the stories on the front page this morning.
Okay, on the Guardian newspaper this morning, the lead story, strike. Not again, anxious Nigerians warn federal government ASU. And the riders union extends meeting to announce decision today. Most lecturers support industrial actions, says source. Parents, stakeholders appeal for restraints. You'd also see ex-minister seeks intervention of former union leaders. And you see a pictorial there showing scarcity of fuel persisting in Lagos over the weekend, talking about yesterday. And you see other stories on the Guardian newspaper. Stakeholders kick as National Assembly delays NG Eagles takeoff over ARIC's 10.8 billion naira debt. And on page 7 on the Guardian newspaper, you'll see the story about stop sit at home before seeking political officers. Ohaneze tells Igbo politicians. And on page 23, talking business and finance, EU seeks partnership on proposed £150 billion African funding. And on page 27 on The Guardian this morning, why federal government's Lagos megacity project failed. Still talking business. On page 2 on The Guardian, you see NNPC yet to withdraw dirty fuel as petrol queues linger. These are some of the major stories on The Guardian.
All right. Now, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. The lead story says, #EndSARS, federal government renews battle with Twitter. Microblogging agency accused of double standards in Canada's truckers' protest. And then you see also death toll in collapsed Lagos building rises to 5. Well, these are mainly the main stories. At the top there, just before we go, Olubadan to be Balogun picks name. You see PDP, APC share FCT councils equally. AGF to CCT chair Aladi, submit yourself for probe. Tinubu meets with monarchs in Ogun State. These are the major stories today on the front page of The Nation.
Okay, let's take one more. The Punch this morning. Fuel sells for 400 naira per litre in Abuja. Others, scarcity persists in Lagos. And the riders there state marketers still struggling to return adulterated petrol to NNPC. Corporation pleads for patience, says fuel queues would end soon. And there's a very disturbing pictorial there that shows burnt shops, government officials or residents at Alakasa Market, Ilesha, Osun State on Sunday. You see other stories on the Punch right at the top. TCN gets transformers to increase power transmission by 1,487 megawatts. And that story is on page 32 on the Punch. Nupeng set for strike, insists ministry diverting 621 billion naira road fund. Banks forex ban. Dollar scarcity, inflation, firms closure imminent, experts warn. And there's a rider there that says CBN policies eroding investors' confidence, feeling uncertainties. And this is according to economists. And on page 4, NDLEA seizes 25 kilogram US, UK, Dubai bound drugs in spare parts and fabrics. Ekiti teenagers land in prison over alleged attempts to kill sex worker. And on page 43, Olubadan, we await Makinde's verdicts today, says Balogun. These are some of the major stories on the Punch.
All right, now let's get perspectives on this. Like we told you, we have Zainab Okinu, the chairperson, editorial board, Blueprint newspaper, in the studio to give us perspectives on this. Thank you again for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, now, well, we'll begin with some very interesting stories. There are permutations about, ASU going on another strike again. I mean, this is like, I don't know how else to describe this, but here we go again. And a lot of students are already agitated, about this. How worrisome is this?
It's truly very worrisome for parents, for students, for the society, the country as a whole. I mean, for the umpteenth time, we are talking about another strike. For how long are we going to continue this way? Over and over, we've had this strike from ASU or some other agencies of government. Why can't we fix this issue once and for all? I mean, I remember the last strike, which took a toll on all of us as a people. There were some agreements before they called off the strike. Remember, ASU will always tell you they are suspending. Suspending in the sense that there are still gray areas. Maybe, but for the sake of sanity, let us just suspend. Then, some of those agreements contained in some of those agreement issues, some of those things agreed upon, the government will fail again. And then before you know it, ASU will be calling for another strike. We really need to put an end to this. And then for students especially, many of us, especially in the last 25 years, many graduates have been victims of ASU strike. People who ordinarily should spend 4 years, most ended up spending 6 years. Then for a 6-year course, some ended up spending 8 years. To think that we are still in that circle, that issue is still revolving, still continuing, it's such a shame. It's a shame to the country.
Really, and it looks like, the accusation has always been that government is not meeting up with the demands, or I would say rather the agreements made in terms of implementing and all of that. And over the years, we've seen that, some monies have been released to ASU, but the what do you call it now? The consistency or the timing of this strike is, it almost come like it's beginning to look like twice in a year now. And sometimes when they go on the strike, you are not even sure when they are going to call it off and all of that. Some have argued that government cannot provide the kind of fund that ASU is requesting. Do you share that thought too?
No. I do not think that government cannot provide the money. The problem we have is that there are wastages elsewhere, in so many other places. And that's why there's not enough to provide for ASU. If government really wants to be in charge, they have to stop wastage. If education is a priority to us, I mean, the way I look at it is that it's as if education is not a priority to this country. If government wants to make education a priority, they can make provision for it. Is it not because politics is a priority that we are making provision, not just for INEC to conduct elections? In fact, government hardly fails when it comes to providing INEC with the means to conduct elections. So why are we now failing when it comes to education? So it is because we don't see it as a priority.
Yeah, but if you say that, government will on the spot say, well, there are a lot of other priorities that we have to deal with. The security of the nation, for instance, is under threat, and even look at the health sector, it's also a priority area. And, the whole issue about the economy, infrastructure development and all of that is a priority. So how do we strike that balance, really?
Well, before these other issues, like security especially, became a priority, was ASU not going on strike. There are things that we would have been able to fix some 25, 30 years ago that we didn't fix. And don't forget that these ASU demands have been on for over 10 years. What does it take to release this money in tranches? I think there will be understanding if ASU will understand if this money is released in tranches. I don't think they are expecting all the billions at a go. But I also expect that ASU should show understanding. But it all depends on what the government offers, because the federal government owns these universities. So government should be able to offer something, and I will expect ASU to also show some understanding and make some concession And we all need to make concessions so that other aspects of our lives, as you mentioned, security, health especially, and other social services, there could be enough attention given to them too. But by and large, I think part of the problem we're having is that government consistently has reneged on their pledges to ASUU.
Well, we hope to see, subsequently what really happens with the whole strike issue as we're getting to here. Now, another very important issue that we are seeing on the papers this morning is the issue of fuel queues. There's been long queue. It has been terrifying and hectic, and getting on these queues. And NNPC, according to The Guardian, is yet to withdraw, the adulterated fuel in circulation. What do we really hope to see this come to an end? When?
Well, to be fair to NNPC and the federal government, they did promise that they will be swift in their reaction in removing this bad fuel, contaminated fuel from our system. They did promise, and I want to believe that they are doing something about it. But it's also not as easy as, I don't know the process involved in removing what is already in the system, what has already circulated throughout the country. I don't know what the process is. But because of the desperation that people are going through now in trying to get fuel, most might want to even get it as bad as it is. But it's very destructive to our vehicles, and it is sad if it is true that petrol now sells for as high as 400 per liter. So, and that it normally will have domino effects. Transport, food, and already we are living in a very bad time. So it will further exacerbate our problems. But NNPC has to be swift about this. Because even the compensation that the federal government promised, how are we going to get? We have heard about compensation, but we've not had the how of it. How is it going to happen? Are you going to dash Nigerians 20 liters of petrol, 50 liters? How are we going to? I mean, it's not enough to make pronouncements. You should follow it with some actionable
steps.
Yes, to help to solve the problem.
Well, quite interesting, really. Now,
is it interesting or is sad?
No, I mean the way we have to now, continue to talk about this, and it's almost becoming like a ritual now. Going about this whole field thing. Government says one thing, and then we get to see another thing, and all of that. Now,
that's why people don't trust government.
Truly. All right. Now, there's some other stories on the Blueprint newspaper, which is very, very interesting to take a look at. The lead story on the Blueprint talks about the Executive Order 10. It says SANS CSOs tango over Supreme Court ruling. The riders to that says Apex Court right order invitation to anarchy. That's according to Akintola. Judiciary autonomy not within FG's purview. That's our Kalu. Minority judgment in order. Golden opportunity lost. That's Ege Okutepa. And then you have Buhari ill-advised. Order not necessary. Sislak Jide Ojo. You see also mobilizing citizenry against states Caesar's way out. That's Yaga Africa's own reaction. Now, it appears that the Blueprint is like the only paper that led with this story, and that's strikes my curiosity here. Thankfully, you are here, so maybe give us an idea.
I'm not the editor of the paper. I'm also seeing it for the first time, but it's an old story. I mean, they just tried to spice it up with more perspectives from stakeholders. So that's just what made the difference. So it's not really news. It's not really news. It's not news. Yes. But bringing up all these other perspectives maybe has now, those have now made it interesting. So, but I think the Supreme Court has spoken. I think there was a time in the last few years when some political actors tried to ask Supreme Court to reverse itself, and the Supreme Court insisted. So I don't know what people hope to gain from bringing up the issue again when the Supreme Court has made its pronouncement, except it's no longer supreme.
Well, the Supreme Court's final. Supreme Court's judgment is final here in this
It's
case.
final, at least at this moment. That's what the law says. Have we heard of any reversal?
No.
I don't think so. I have not seen any. So, but then we can continue to discuss it, because some other day there will be an opportunity for something similar, and CBN. And the Supreme Court may have to look at it again. So perhaps they'll come to a compromise.
Okay, talking about CBN, as you've given a tip, the story on the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay.
About 2023, moves to draft Emefiele thickens. When you say, we did expect that?
I don't understand our politicians. Here is a man who has a mandate, a 5-year mandate after it was renewed. And then you are calling him to come to join politics, to come and do what? So I think there are some rabble-rousers somewhere that are always looking for a way of drawing the attention of people that they think have the means to sponsor certain things. I do not want to believe that the CBN governor had anything to do with it. So I don't know what their aim is. I don't know what, but you know, in every political situation, there must be some form of ulterior motive somewhere that we might not be privy to. So, who knows? It's just unfolding. In the next few weeks, we'll see what happens.
It's beginning to look more like we have, campaign groups that are now, I would say, not professionals, but they are experts in, striking conversations and mentioning names and bringing up names, like you said, for people who may, wish to fall in for that and begin to consider that, oh, okay, maybe I should contest, for this, and it's becoming like it's like a cash cow, or rather, people are making a living out of this, in our political space, whether that is for the good or not. What's your thinking around
I see it as a job for the boys. Many people are hungry and they are jobless. There's no job. The job market is already saturated. And everybody now who has, I don't want to say those who don't have shame, so they do things that are almost abnormal and unrealistic. But you know what they say? There's no smoke without fire.
Right.
Sometimes there's so much behind that we do not know. So it is possible that some people want him as a compromise candidate for the East. So it's up to the electorate now, or and which party? They did not even mention.
Some have said Buhari.
No, he will just come from somewhere, from nowhere, to become an aspirant.
It will be very interesting to see how somebody like Emefiele will stand up to the leader of the APC, the kingmaker who wants to be king now, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to contest for the same seat. It will be very interesting to see that that kind of race. But we keep our fingers crossed.
Talking about a kingmaker, I want it to be king.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I can't even wait to see. There's always a problem when a kingmaker wants to be king. There are always issues. Sometimes you are just good as a kingmaker, behind the scene, do your work, and then let's wait and see.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Surprise! Nigeria's politics is full of surprises.
Yes.
Indeed.
Really, almost everything is possible,
Right.
as they say. So
Yes.
we'll continue to keep watching that and bring you all the updates. Now, again, we will also look at another story on the front page of the Daily Trust that talks about the APC convention. Sales of form has begun, despite the controversy about zoning, and the whole discussion about whether or not the convention itself will even hold, considering the pending issues that are yet to be resolved by the peace committee that was set up of the APC. So what are your thoughts around this?
You know all these political groups, you can never find a solution to their problems. So they have so many problems. My take is that at least we have started from somewhere. Finally, APC has thrown the door open now. So at least those aspiring to be what, this and that, can now buy their forms. There were doubts originally that it might not even hold. There are still gray areas. There will always be gray areas. But by the end of this week, we'll see the number of people who have bought forms, and we'll know those who are serious and those that are pretending to be this and that. So let's give them that benefit of the doubt.
So could you, what do you think about the whole issue of zoning?
Of
zoning. What do you think about the whole
zoning.
conversation about zoning?
Personally, I do not mind zoning. Anything that can engender peace in this country, I don't mind going for it. If there is zoning and it is constitutional, zoning is just an arrangement, a convenient arrangement among political parties. It's not a constitutional thing. Though we know it's not a constitutional thing, but zoning it helps bring about sanity in the system. If only this thing is in the constitution, it would have been easy for us to say, well, it's your turn today, it's your turn today. But it was an understanding. But ever since 2011, when ex-President Jonathan broke that ice, when he didn't keep to the zoning arrangement earlier promised by the PDP then, it's as if it has been thrown open. And that was why he got his pound of flesh in 2015. Remember, if you recall, in 2011, the North said he had just completed, that's Jonathan, had just completed Yar'Adua's term. And as such, they should still be given the opportunity to have another 4 years. But because he was already in power, and the power of incumbency in Nigeria, it was difficult to stop him. So then everything just went bad for him later. So if only the political parties themselves can come to an arrangement whereby power sharing will not be, every 4 years we have this issue of zoning or to zone or not to zone, to zone or not to zone. I would love a situation where until we mature to a level where we should just seek the best. We should just seek the best instead of looking for where the zone that should come up with a presidential aspirant or not.
Some will say that, if you insist on zoning, then the rights of some Nigerians may not be realized in some way. It's like putting a limitation or restriction, on how much people can aspire and all of that. And there are those who said, well, that will compromise on merit, in regards to selecting, the right leaders, for the country. So on both sides, there are arguments. Those who are championing zoning also talk about, this need for rotation of power so that it will give opportunity for other parts of the country to also have a chance, of governing the country and all of that. So, but, overall, why is it so important, this conversation of zoning from the perspective that you are taking?
The reason why it is important in a country like Nigeria is because there is no equity. If there is equity and fairness, it does not matter where the president comes from. It does not matter where the president comes from. In America, in the UK, do they care about zoning? I don't think it's even, they know what zoning is about there. So it's because there's no equity that we talk about zoning, because it does appear that the zone that gets the presidency gets the useless part of the country's oil money or resources or siting of some development projects and all that. So that's why it's such a big issue. For me, what matters most is equity, fairness, and justice to all Nigerians. But it is not constitutional. And time will come when it will no longer matter. It will no longer matter where you come from.
In other words, Nigeria is not necessarily, our democracy is not ripe, for the kind of, open kind of system.
I won't say it's not ripe. We keep saying we are not ripe for this, we are not ripe for this. We are not ripe for, what is it the other day that they said we are not ripe for? When are we going to be ripe for anything? After 60 years of independence.
And most of which was, ruled by the military anyways.
It does not matter. I mean, the new democratic dispensation started in 1998. That's
1999.
1999. 22 years?
Yes.
22 plus. I mean, isn't a 22-year-old guy or lady is,
yeah, but democratically,
already.
Democratically, some have argued that it's quite young. 22 years is quite young for a country like Nigeria to really begin to, have a sense of direction, like in terms of building of institutions that will be very strong, as such.
I can bet you that in the next 20 years, if we are all alive to witness how Nigeria will evolve, people will still be arguing about maturity. We are not ripe for this, we are not ripe for that. We are never ready for anything.
So
we are never ready for anything. if I ever have an opportunity, but I'm not a politician anyway, I will insist on certain things. And it will be. It will be.
All right.
We just have to get it right once and for all. Constitutional amendment, how many times have we tried to amend the Constitution? Okay, we are not ripe, we are not ripe. Amend this one now, you will not do it. At least let's get over one, then we move to the next one. We don't even want to move at all. We don't want to. We're just marking time.
Stop.
Kind of.
Quite
we are stuck. Kind
quite
of.
sad. All right. Well, let's take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we'll continue with our review on the program. Please stay with us. This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story. All right, thank you for staying. This is Daybreak reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja, and we are taking a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers. We have Hajia Zainab Okino, the chairperson, editorial board of Blueprint newspaper, sharing with us her perspectives on some of these stories. Now, quite a touching story on the front page of Daily Trust this morning about a housewife who was found slaughtered in Kano. If you look at the trends, of the kind of stories that we've been seeing recently, even a 5-year-old, was poisoned and killed by her own teacher some few weeks ago. We saw a boy in Maiduguri also who was slaughtered. Not to talk about the cases, several cases of rape and abuse and eventual killing, abductions and the rest. What does this say, in your thoughts about this recent happenings in our society? Are we seeing an increase of this kind of atrocities?
Obviously, there's an increase, but social media has also helped to shine a light on some of these issues. I mean, it has always been there, like I mentioned earlier. There are bad people everywhere. Wickedness has always been there. We don't know the motives because this has just happened. We don't know the motives. We don't even know who the killers are. I expect that police will swing into action and do their normal investigation and prosecution. I also don't hope it will stop there. I hope it will go beyond that, fish out the killers and then try it. I think the problem with us is that when something like this happens, it seems to be the end. We don't hear anything about it again. And before you know, another one will happen. So if only those involved, police, the judiciary, everybody will do their work, and let us be seeing these cases, let the prosecution be open, let the judiciary be open with everything, so that we see how these people end up in prison, getting punished for their infractions.
I think the case of Hanifa is setting a tone to that. Maybe some will say maybe it has become a public, a public concern case that people are interested in. That's why it's in.
Hanifa is only, it's because of the way her own is. Her own is really bizarre. I mean, when a protector becomes a predator. So, and because she's just a child, a 5-year-old child, so it has been generating a lot of interest. And the fact that they were able to apprehend the man. But there are so many cases, tens and hundreds of cases that killers are never found. Everything is quiet. You never get to know who did it and who gets punished. Even when we get to know who did what, you don't know who is punished for what. So everything is just muddled up at the end of the day. I hope the young lady who was a mother of 2, will get justice in the end. Because nothing gives hope to a society than justice being done.
True. All right, now let's take a look at also another story on the front page of Daily Trust that talks about, private sector alliance raises 100 billion naira to fight insecurity. So talking about, having this all-encompassing approach to fight against insecurity and how stakeholders, literally everyone needs to be involved with the fight. 100 billion naira now raised by the private sector alliance. And that's a commendable effort there.
Yeah. Commendable indeed.
What are your thoughts about how we can utilize? Because it's one thing to even raise the money.
Yes.
It's another to channel the money to proper use.
At least we have started from somewhere. Let all segments of the society get involved, because the private sector, mostly corporate Nigeria, business cannot thrive in the face of insecurity. So I'm happy that they have come up with this. And once the money is raised, I do not think disbursement will be an issue, because there are already strategies and there are suggestions. I want to believe that they also make their own input. So I don't think spending the money will be a problem. Already there are efforts. It's not as if there are no efforts in place. There are efforts in place. Government is doing its best, even though it's not good enough. But I'm happy that the private sector has come into it. So the private sector will not give you money without monitoring it. At least, because of their background as businessmen. So I want to believe that they will not just give this money, they will also monitor it and come up with suggestions on how to solve this our major problem, this problem of insecurity that is threatening to take over the country.
Well, just before we go, there's a piece here at the back page of the Daily Trust newspaper that we wouldn't finish this without mentioning it, and it's something that you really want to pick a copy of the Daily Trust to read through. It's a piece by the Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Daily Trust newspaper, Suleiman, and it talks about its Section 99 stupid. Well, that's a big issue there. And if I may, I'll just take a quote from it. It says, by this provision, Chief Bola Tinubu, Governor Dave Umahi, and Rochas Okorocha, etc., have all already violated this law. To inform the president of their bid for the presidency is to canvass for his vote, regardless of the intervening primaries. After all, the president is a registered voter. To call a press conference and recount all of that to Nigerians is also to canvass for their votes. So I am guessing that's a conversation about, the campaigns, when campaigns should begin for elections. The Constitution has given the provision, the electoral law, as a matter of fact, has provided clearly when politicians can commence campaigning and politicking. But clearly, it's something that has been violated over and over. INEC doesn't even have a timetable yet for the election. And we are seeing already things that look like campaigns, by the very people who are sometimes even in government. So
there are too many things. So let's take it one by one. INEC is waiting for the electoral amendment
bill.
Bill.
Yes, bill.
Waiting for it.
Yes,
Otherwise, I think
signed.
they already have a fair idea of what they want to do. Then, as a columnist, as a syndicated columnist, I don't like commenting on other people's opinions because it's purely their opinions. So you can put up your own opinion if you feel anything to the contrary. So, but I want to believe he is talking of, you mentioned something about the presidential aspirants going to the president.
Yes.
From everything you have said, whether about timetable campaigning, because they can tell you that they have not formally started any campaign, they are just doing consultations. So, but from everything you have said is, something is wrong with the aspirants that felt the need for them to go and meet the president to tell him about their aspirations, whereas the president has only one vote. That's what I can pick from what the summary you just did.
And
the president has only one vote.
And again,
why go
canvassing for support, from Nigerians by making all these press conferences, and all of that.
Press conference is not enough to count. It's not like canvassing for votes. It's an elitist thing anyway. It's for you and I. The real people that vote at the grassroots, they are the ones you should go and tell that you want to be president. But the point you are trying to make is that the whistle has not even been blown and they have started campaigning. That's why I said they can explain it away. They can tell you that they have not had any rally. They can tell you that what their supporters are doing is they are doing it on their own volition, trying to sensitize people about them. They can tell you 1,001 things why what they are doing is right. And they are just doing consultation, and there's nothing wrong in consulting with people that, I want to be president, what do you think about it? So they can excuse what they are doing. They can excuse it.
Okay.
I do not think, even if you take this case to court, you can easily win. Yeah, I don't think you can easily win. But it's his opinion.
Yes, and it's an argument.
What I pick from there is that why consult with the president when you have not consulted with the people?
Well, again, that's also another, argument there. Well, thank you so much for, coming on Daybreak this morning and sharing your perspectives with us. We will continue to engage, in this manner to take a look at the stories that are relevant to us as Nigerians.
Thank you. It's my pleasure being here.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Zainab Okino. She is the chairperson, editorial board, Blueprint newspaper. Now we'll take a quick breather, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at another discussion on the program. Please stay with us.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital. Now, to kickstart our first discussion on the program, the Central Bank of Nigeria has revealed that it will stop the sale of foreign exchange to banks by the end of the year 2022. According to CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, the decision is aligned with the CBN's new commitment to boost the country's foreign reserves through proceeds from non-oil exports. Now we have a financial analyst, Mukhtar Mohammed, joining us via Skype from Lagos for more discussion on this. Hello, Mukhtar.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to have you join us on Daybreak this morning.
My pleasure always.
Okay, so now could you talk to us on this new CBN decision for banks to source for their forex themselves?
Well, it's a good decision in the long term, but in the short term, it's going to cause a lot of disruption to the system. And there's a saying that says it's the short term that determines the long term, and what you do in the short term determine whether you achieve the long term goal. So when we look at that, then we'll begin to ask ourselves, it could be a very difficult thing to do, because the CBN is talking about allowing banks to source for their own forex. And we know that 90% of our forex comes through sales in crude oil, and crude oil revenue goes directly into the account with the CBN. So it does not go into any account of any bank. So that means 90% of the forex will be going to the CBN. So in the short term, doesn't look nice, because it's going to cause obstruction in the system. It's going to cause a lot of inflationary problem. It's going to cause what we're already suffering from already high exchange rate in the parallel market to go up again, because you just need to not to look too far to see just stoppage of sale of dollar to the Bureau de change. I've tracked the naira in the parallel market to about 570, 580. So in the short term, I think what they should have been doing, look at stability. After you've created stability in the forex market, then that's when you should be talking about banks sourcing for their own FX.
All right. Well, but mainly the central bank talks about, boosting our foreign exchange earnings, by so doing. So, don't you think that it's the right step in the right direction? Perhaps it will reduce the pressure on the dollar, isn't it?
No, definitely. Like I said, in the short term, we will not reduce the pressure on the dollar, because we already have a pressure already. We already have that pressure. So we are not addressing that pressure. We are looking at the long-term solution to a short-term problem, which is sometimes okay, but you need to pressure up that. You need to get that pressure up that exchange rate. Once you get the pressure up the exchange rate, then you begin to of this solution that you are bringing in. No, we are not saying that they are going to be earning FX through the oil. They say non-oil market. You're talking about non-oil. You're talking about growing other sector. You're talking about the manufacturing sector. These are sectors that have their own challenges that have to do with infrastructure that have not been addressed. So in the short term, it doesn't look nice, because already we have that pressure on. So what I would expect the CBN to do was, for you to make such a statement, then you should have stabilized the current challenges that we have in the FX market. That again is not going to make you to attract foreign investors, because foreign investors come to the Nigerian market because they know that the CBN has the capacity to meet their exit demand when they want to exit the market. But now that you are saying that bank will be the one to meet their demand, is going to reduce a lot of foreign direct investment into Nigeria, or even portfolio investment also.
All right. Well, again, others have said that perhaps this will also help to boost, export in Nigeria, exporting, in Nigeria by the banks now, finding a way to help and promote ideas that will, help in terms of exporters, doing business overseas and all of that. Don't you think that that's something that will have an implication in the long run, on our economy?
Yes, I said in the long run we could have that, but you don't address a long-term. You address a long-term problem with a short-term solution. What are you doing in the short term? The short-term problem we have in the FX market is all about demand and supply. We've not been able to mix that, so we have those challenges. So if we are able to address the problem of demand and supply, then you begin to come up with this strategy to maintain a long-term solution to a problem that has become a recurrent decimal in the Nigerian economy. Look, stabilizing the naira has not been an issue for the CBN, but going forward, it has not been able to sustain this stability. So what they are trying to do is to sustain the stability in the long run, which is good. I have been an advocate that banks should begin to source for their own foreign FX, their own self, to satisfy their own customers. I should be able to walk into a bank, and the bank should act as another medium of Bureau de change, whereby bank goes to go international to source for funds. So they should be able to source for those funds. They go to get Eurobond, they can begin to source for dollar also in their own coffers, so their own customers can begin to get this dollar from them, which is okay. But we have a problem at hand now, which is, how do you address this short-term problem that we have? Then when you address the short-term problem, bring stability into the system, then you are going to create a long-term stability when you introduce it. What we are going to see panic comes into the system. We are going to see the exchange rate in the parallel market begin to skyrocket. Even if you are going to see the bank, are made to understand that the bank used to give FX, PTA and school fees to Nigerians daily. They have now reduced it to weekly. So we are going to begin to see those shortages play, because the bank is saying by December we might not have to get from the CBN again. So whatever we have, whatever we've gotten from the CBN now, we need to manage it. So it's going to cause a lot of destruction in the system, which is not a good destruction at the moment. The Nigerian economy does not need those kind of statements now. Even to do it, you should be able to tell us, look, this is what we are looking toward, but before then we want to stabilize the FX market.
Okay, so Mukhtar, could you talk to us about the RT200, which is the race to $200 billion forex repatriation? Do you think it's working?
Well, you see, in the CBN normally don't give us, they are not open when it comes to the forex issue. I keep saying it, they have not been open, so we can't really say whether it's working or not working, because we need to get those data from them to know. But if you want to look at it, is it working? Then all you need to look at is both the official and the parallel market. And if you look at the official market, the CBN market, which we call the official market, we've seen the dollar going from 410 to 419. So you see it's not working. If you look at the parallel market, you've seen the dollar move from 470 to 580. Then you say it's not working, but the CBN will tell you that, oh, it's going to work in the long term, because those days that they used to give FX to the Bureau de Change, we used to know weekly how much the CBN put into the FX market. But these days we don't have those data, so you can't be saying it's working. And again, when you look at our foreign reserve, also has depleted over some time. We're at over around $39 million per barrel. $39 billion in our foreign reserve from a high of almost 40 billion. And even with the high crude oil price, we are not seeing it reflecting in our results. So when you look at all these three issues I've said, then you will see it's not working.
All right. Now, well, let's talk about some possibilities here. Is it something that, we could expect maybe some kind of, decrease in the cost of the dollar, by virtue of this, in the near future, maybe? It's something that Nigerians are really looking forward to.
We could see the increase in the inflow of the dollar if we're able to manage our economy. But like I said, it's not something that will happen overnight. It's not something that will happen in the next 9 months or 10 months, like the CBN is making us to believe. It's something that will happen over time, because it's not rocket science, like you say. But again, it has a lot to do with policies. It has a lot to do with infrastructures. It has a lot to do with availability of forex. So if you look at these three issues I've raised up now, we don't have the means, or we are not handling those issues because we don't have the capability to handle those issues. So it's not looking good when you look at that. But in the long term, are we able to fix this problem? Are we able to begin to let the banks source for FX themselves? Then it could work in the long term. I'm an advocate that it will work in the long term. This policy is a good policy, but we need to create stability first in the short term. Then in the long term, to maintain that stability that we have created, both in the import-export market, both in the CBN exchange, what we call the official exchange rate, and the parallel market, we are able to bridge the gap in terms of supply. Then we can begin to say, this is the policy that's in place now. Bank begin to source for your own, for your clients, for your customers. Then we will see a long-term stability. The policy is meant to stabilize the forex market. But in the short term, we need to build stability before we begin to introduce any other policy. Because what you see now, you see panic in the system. Like I've just told you, the banks are panicking now. They are no more releasing daily PTA to their customers. They are now making it weekly. So it's a challenge.
On the inflation rate in the country.
It's definitely going to affect the inflation rate in the country. I mean, there's no doubt about that, because over 80% of what we use for our day-to-day consumption is being imported outside of the shore of the country. And the manufacturers have been complaining for a while now that they've not been able to meet up a lot of their demand. So I think it's going to, in the short term, it's going to really affect us. Definitely. I mean, inflationary pressure would definitely come up if we, even by men, even not even implementing this policy, we're already seeing inflation having a problem. So by the time we implement this policy, we could see a hike in inflation, more hike in inflation.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, actually said they're going to be leaving banks to fund entrepreneurs with ideas and skills to support, and attract foreign currencies. Do you think banks have the capacity to do this? Mohammed, a financial analyst from Lagos, talking to us about the new CBN directive to stop, forex supply to banks. Right, it's quite interesting.
To reconnect back with Mukhtar so that we can continue this conversation. We'll be right back. All right, thank you for staying. This is Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. Now, joining us from Lagos is a financial analyst, Mukhtar Mohammed, and he's been talking to us about the decision of the central bank to end the issuance of dollars to banks. And we are talking about the implication of that on our economy. Now, Mukhtar, I believe you can hear me. Now, what are the likely implications of this decision on the drive to create more jobs for Nigerians? Already we are dealing with a very high level of unemployment in the country.
Well, I think the CBN is trying to address the job creation area by the 100 million for 100 entrepreneurs. So they are beginning to look at that to help the SMEs. So we need to see what will come out from that, because they are trying to bring an homegrown solution to the employment problem. And they also were saying that they were going to address the FX challenges of these SMEs, the 100 SMEs that they will pick to make sure that these are SMEs that contribute to the GDP and also create jobs. So when you look at that, we need to wait and see what will come out from those policies helping those small SMEs, especially the manufacturing sector. That could be the game changer in terms of job creation. But when you look at the manufacturing sector, especially, or the informal sector, which links to be the largest employer of labor in Nigeria, then you see that there's a lot of challenges that are there. And most of the challenges they are facing also have to do with the foreign exchange market, because they were the one mostly that patronized the Bureau de Change. And after you close down the Bureau de Change, they've not created a window for them to access FX. So that's what is causing the pressure also in the exchange rate in the parallel market, because they need to bring product into Nigeria and they don't care how they're going to bring it. So by the time they bring it at an exchange rate of 570, 580, or 590, then they have to sell it at a high cost. And so that will also have impact in inflation that we are seeing. So in addressing that problem, the CBN need to come up with a comprehensive, holistic solution. And unfortunately, it's not even in the CBN status to be doing all this direct investment into SMEs, and that's what we've been complaining. It's supposed to be what the fiscal policy are supposed to come up with, policy that would drive growth and create employment. But CBN is stepping in here because it says that their monetary policy is not yielding the result, because there's no synergy between their own monetary policy and that of the fiscal policy, which has to do with the other arm, with government. So they have to begin to do what they are doing. These are things that is supposed to come from the fiscal side, creating policy to complement the monetary policy. Then you see this job comes in. So it's what we call in economics demand and supply. Once you have the supply, the demand is there, then you are able to meet the demand and the supply, then you see this thing comes down. So unfortunately, what we're seeing here is that CBN is beginning to get themselves involved in area that is not their core competency, direct intervention. You see them doing it in the rice, you see them doing it they're trying to do it in Texas. These are not their area of us, but CBN is more to create stability in the monetary aspect of the economy. The microeconomic stability is supposed to be driven by the fiscal policies.
All right. Now, I mean, first it was the BDCs, that central bank decided that we're not going to be giving you, Forex anymore. And now it's the banks. What are other areas that you think need more attention as well, or, we should consider in terms of how to boost our foreign exchange earnings?
I think one of the areas we need to consider is we throughout most of our private PPP, probably private partnership, especially in the area of our infrastructure. We should be doing those concessions, and then we bring down the direct foreign investment will be coming into the country. But what we see we are doing with China is PPP in the area of contingency plan, whereby China just bring in their equipment from there without even getting those equipment, because we are not producing those equipment. So rather, it's also adding to the pressure that we are seeing in the economy. Then the other way that we could address this issue is local refining of our petroleum products. If you look at those when CBN used to publish those that have access to Forex, you realize that over 90% of them actually are from the oil sector, importation of refined petroleum products. So if we are able to address that, then we'll see we'll have addressed a very key area in the economy.
All right.
Talking about Forex. I saw this over the weekend. The CBN governor said that Nigerians abroad have accelerated remittances into the country from 2.1 billion to 41.5 billion every week, because of its Naira dollar scheme. Could you talk to us about that?
Well, I said, if those policies are working like the CBN make us to believe, then we should see the exchange rate in the parallel market, or we could see the exchange rate in the official market, or we see the exchange rate in the import-export window comes down. We have not seen that. Rather, we've seen a spike in the exchange rate in all of these spaces. So if you want to see results, you see results based on the policies that they are bringing. You need not to forget that also these Nigerians in the diaspora that make this remittance are also going to challenge in the pandemic also, because most of them don't have job as they used to have jobs. So those remittance is not coming in like when it used to come in before. But if CBN is saying that we have doubled the remittance within a year, then we need to see those results we need to see those impact of those results in the FX market. But we're not seeing those impact of those results. So it's hard to believe that your policy is making impact in terms of remittance, and it's not addressing the key issue why you introduced that policy to reduce volatility in the exchange rate market. So for me, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't make sense if you say that and then we are saying the rate comes up even in the FX, even in the parallel market, the rates the rate are high also in the import-export window, and the rate are even high in the CBN control windows that they give to banks for PTA. So I don't know how they are seeing the impact on the impact of their policy on the exchange rate.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mukhtar. But just before we let you go, on a lighter note, I would like to get your own reaction to, the story about the CBN governor being considered for a very good presidential aspirant in the coming 2023 elections. That's a story that we are seeing on our front page this morning, briefly.
If it is by performance, what we want to judge the CBN governor, they have done a lot in direct intervention, they have done a lot, but what affects the ordinary man, what affects me, what affects everybody, we've not seen the impact of the CBN in that area, because that means we've seen the CBN governor come in from an exchange rate regime of 200, and then he came in when the naira was exchanging for 197 to the dollar, and today that was even in the parallel market. Today we are doing 570, and that have increased the sufferings of Nigeria, that have increased the inflation figure, that have bring the cost of living high. Then if that is the reason, if you are looking by achievement, then we could say, I think he has not done well for himself, because that's the major point that everybody will be pointing at if he has to go out to campaign. But maybe he has vision for Nigeria. He has tried his best, especially the Anko borrowing that we have, the rice pyramid in Abuja. Maybe that's just what he's looking at.
I mean, well, well, so to say that by what you've just said, that it means that we have bigger fishes to fry, as far as economy is concerned, isn't it? He has much more serious issues to concentrate on, rather than considering, politics, isn't it?
He has 4 years. He still has another 4 years. He needs to redeem himself. So he shouldn't be thinking of going to the presidency. He's still a very young man at his age. So maybe if he's able to perform the next 4 years, we will begin to clamor for him to take over position. But for now, I think the most serious issue is to deal with the economy.
Is he young? Really? Is he? Well, I don't think. Well, if you say young, well, depending on what you mean, by being young. But thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning and sharing your perspectives with us on this subject. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Good morning, Abuja.
All right, bye. All right, well, that was financial analyst Mukhtar Mohammed, who is also giving us perspectives on the issue of the decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria to end the issuance of forex to banks by the end of this year, 2022. A very interesting conversation.
Very interesting.
Well, let's take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at other issues on the program. Please stay with us.
Hello, and welcome to Trust TV News Updates.
I'm Zainab Bala. For more news, follow us across all our social media platforms.
The nightmare that most of these Pape residents have dreaded for many years is finally happening.
The place is a skeleton of itself, a place that was once busy with patients trooping in and out.
I'm standing right now. I'm standing on top of the Maloney Hill in the ancient city of Kefi.
Corporation, I know communities where they are contributing to buy locally manufactured guns to defend themselves.
Being a Nigerian entrepreneur, and I am going to be taking you on a journey to show you the beautiful, the motivational and resilient nature of Nigerian entrepreneurs.
Behind me is the Arewa Textile Mill, established in 1963 and eventually closed down in 2004.
We are still going into some other hideouts to see if any apprehensions will be made tonight.
Let's travel down to Shekau, a community in Yobe State, to talk to Shekau's mother on what she thinks about this development.
Well, even to be a magistrate is a funny thing.
Yes. Have things changed? Is there more corruption now in the judiciary? What can we do about it?
Well, this is one of the internally displaced camps here in Gusau, the Zamfara State's capital.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. Now, like we told you, today is Valentine's Day. And this day is, known for a lot of things. A lot of things come to bear when we talk about Valentine. But historically, when we go back to the feast, the Roman feast that, all started the whole Valentine's thing, certain things usually happen. A goat and a dog were sacrificed by men, and on these days, and women were whipped with the hides of the sacrificed animals, as it was believed that it will make them fertile. So this is one of the practices in those days. Remember, we told you that there was this feast of Lupercalia that takes place between 13th to 15th of February in the Roman times, and this is one of the practices in those days. Now, also, a matchmaking lottery will also be carried out, where men will draw names of women from a jar, and they will be coupled up together for the entire duration of the festival. Now, these are some of the practices in those days. Now, this feast was now replaced by what we now know today as the Valentine's Day. And so you could see where, the link is coming from as to how people perceive Valentine and how it is being celebrated. But largely in our days, in these current days, it is known for a day that signifies, love, sharing, among family, friends, and the likes. So we'll be talking about that. And, usually it comes with certain implications. We have Dr. Daniel Ndukwe. He is the Deputy Director, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA. And he'll be talking to us, about, some practices that we see on this Valentine's Day. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning. Thank you very
Happy
much.
Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
And I hope that you are planning a date of some sort with your loved one.
Yes, my wife is there watching me closely, so I will pick it from there on after work.
Oh, lovely.
Because she understands coming to work is also showing love, because I have to make food available for
right.
That's very interesting, really. Now, talk to us about your own perspective about this day, Valentine. A lot of stories really about Valentine's Day.
Honestly, I have tried to read around it. You just give one perspective. There's another one that talks about a Roman Catholic priest in those days. And according to the story, there was a king who was against some form of marriage. He stopped people from marrying. So he was wedding them in secret. And then, according to that story, the name of the priest is Saint Valentine. So people celebrate him for really protecting marriage when I don't know whether it's also Roman Empire that didn't want that community to be getting married and so on and so forth.
Claudius, the Emperor Claudius II.
Sometimes people don't know the history behind a thing, and then sometimes they also take it so far, too far. If you look at any time there's a kind of festive period, there appears to be something in the air that make people want to sometimes lay down their guards, go, sometimes throw their reasons off the window. For example, if you talk of Christmas, a lot of people think it's time to blow all their savings they have made up through the year. You talk of Valentine, they say love, and then if it's okay, if I use the word love, they love irresponsibly. Just like some people say, drink responsibly. So they love irresponsibly. And in our modern time, when you talk of love is now reduced to sexual activity without values, without commitment. So there are quite a lot of things, and that's why the agency thinks on this kind of day we should tell people, if you must get involved in sexual intercourse, please make it to be as safe as possible.
Okay, I'm really keen on why, usually we know people, have sexual intercourse and all of that, but why Valentine? What is so special about the one that happens on Valentine's Day?
What makes it special is because they say it's Love Day.
Lover's Day.
Yeah, when you say it's Lover's Day, that's when lovers should show love to one another. But then the question now will be, how do you show that love? You can show love to a lover, you can show love to other people. There are people who are in need, you can give word of advice, you can give material things, you can visit motherless baby home. These are different ways of showing love. But especially for young people, that must not be the way they want to show love. Okay, imagine somebody is in a relationship and they say, today is Lovers Day, how do you show me love? Maybe the girl has been saying, no, I don't want to get involved in sexual intercourse. You could say, no, today is a special day. Every other person is doing it. Pressure will come because there's something in the atmosphere that say, for today, show love. And how do you show love? Most people have reduced it to sexual intercourse. So that's why I think is very good for us to keep drumming this. We know that sex is an instinct in man, but if we are not in control of that instinct, it could cause a lot of damages. There are so many sexually transmitted diseases out there, HIV, hepatitis, especially B and C, are doing a lot of harm. There are so many other ones, syphilis, gonorrhea, name them. And then they have, some of them can actually lead to death if they're not well treated. If they don't lead to death, they can actually damage the reproductive system of the individual. You hear of people saying a woman has fallopian tube, the man has gonorrhea that has even made it difficult to urinate. There are so many complications that can come from that. So that's why we keep saying you can still abstain even on the day of Valentine. Okay, you can abstain. There's so many ways, like I mentioned, you can show love. I'm actually showing love here to my family because I work hard, not just for myself. You can show love to Nigeria if you are patriotic. But if it's come to showing love to your lover, fine, and you can't abstain, we'll say, you know what? Try to have a lover that is, faithful to you, you're also faithful to the person. Because if you're faithful to somebody who is not faithful, the person can also get sexual transmitted disease and bring to you. Then now that, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of love, in quote, or love making without commitment is rife in our society. So what I will say again is, fine, if you're not sure that your partner is faithful to you, then please use a condom consistently and use it correctly. Because this one day of Valentine that people tend to lay down their guard might open up opportunity for somebody to get infected with various kind of diseases that can actually change the course of your life significantly.
All right, now talking about sexually transmitted diseases, when HIV and AIDS first came, there was this scare, people, are very mindful. People do not want to associate with people with HIV. In fact, it led to some kind of stigmatization of people with HIV and all of that. But do you think that in these days, maybe HIV is not as dangerous as people used to look at it, and so there's a change in behavior in terms of recklessness, and engaging in certain kind of practices?
Yes, certainly it's not as dangerous as it used to be, not because the virus has suddenly become less dangerous, but because we have gotten some effective treatment. Okay, so people can live their normal life, and that's why it describes someone as somebody living with HIV. The HIV is in the virus, but with the drug it is controlled. But if I remember when I was a house officer, and then a patient was admitted with HIV. You keep managing, treating diarrhea, treating all the symptoms, all the signs, but you are not treating the virus because we didn't have the medications in Nigeria then. So then it used to be certainly a death sentence because after a number of months or years, the person eventually packs up. But with the treatment, people look healthier than you and I, yet they're living with the virus. But when it comes to stigma a lot of time is a function of ignorance or wrong knowledge. We know how HIV can be transmitted. It's either through sexual intercourse, which is the commonest way it is transmitted in the country. It could be from an infected mother to the baby, especially if she's not taking antiretroviral drugs. So that can happen. It could be when you share sharp objects, if you also transfuse or save blood. But apart from this way, you don't get it from shaking hand. So people tell you, I got it from toilet. Nobody gets HIV from toilet, sharing toilet. It doesn't happen. Some people have heard of people who are infected and their family members will say, this is your own cup, this is your own plate. Don't share the rest of the cutlery or utensils with members of the family. That's also ignorance, because eating food, if I even take one spoon and give you, if any of us is infected, you cannot get transmitted. So when people understand and come to believe how it is not transmitted, then they cannot know how to relate to people. I've also had instances where people are screened. You want to work in a hotel. They say, no, because you have HIV. What has working in a hotel got to do with HIV? Even a food processing plant, they'll say somebody has HIV, shouldn't work there. Why wouldn't the person work there? If it is something like hepatitis A, which can be transmitted through saliva, then that's a different thing. But hepatitis B, C, HIV, you can't transmit it. So why do you deny that person work? So you see, all those stigma has another effect, because it now makes the person who's infected to be scared and then don't come out to get treatment. And then that can also lead to transmission to other people in the society. So stigma, discrimination isn't doing us any good.
Okay. So now let's talk numbers. Would you say the number of HIV, patients in Nigeria is rising, or it's more on decline presently?
All right. So when you ask the question about the number, it's a bit tricky. If our number decreases suddenly, it might also mean that people who are infected died significantly. So, but what we used to measure is to say the rate of infection, or what they call incidence rate, the number of new infections in a year. Is it rising or is it decreasing? So for us as a country, it is decreasing.
Oh, that's great.
Because it doesn't have a cure, when somebody is infected and that person is put on treatment, we expect you to live your life through. But you see, you're always being counted as somebody who's living with the virus. But if the rate of new infection is decreasing, then that means we are actually making good progress. And for us as a country, yes, the rate of infection is coming down.
Oh, that's
yes,
great.
it's coming down. So we're making progress. And the NIAS survey that was done has actually brought the prevalence. That means the total number of people, the ones we know, the ones we don't know, projected to be living with the virus is put around 2 million plus. So we're doing well. There was time the estimate used to be around 3 million. Yes.
All right, now, how is the impact of COVID-19 on people living with, HIV and AIDS? Some have said there's, high rate of fatalities, on people who are living with, HIV and AIDS, and all of that. Is that
studies
correct?
haven't shown any significant risk to somebody who's living with HIV if that person gets co-infected with COVID. Especially if that person living with HIV is on treatment. Receiving his antiretroviral drugs, and then the immune response would have bounced back, to something that at least significant enough to keep that person healthy. But the impact of COVID we saw as a country, and then we devised some strategy to deal with, will be how do you even get your medication? You remember in the days of COVID, in those days, there was total lockdown. So how do you move commodities? How does the client access service delivery points? Because sometimes the worker is even scared. Anybody that comes down with fever, you don't want to attend to the person because it could be COVID, all right? But we didn't see any statistic that shows significant death among those living with HIV in Nigeria from COVID, no. I can't say we saw anything significant. So, except if that person has some other disease conditions that put you at risk, like maybe some chronic lung diseases or some other diseases, diabetes. Otherwise, if you just HIV, especially controlled, there's no significant risk that we have seen.
All right, now, what are some of the practices that, safety practices that you will want to urge our viewers to have, especially, when I recall in those days there's this jingle about HIV, they show for face, that like it's been said, in local parlance. So these days you have more healthier people, you never really know who is living with, the virus. And so what are the safety practices that, you want Nigerians to maintain?
I will, especially in this time of Valentine, I will want everybody to really sit up, including the parents. I wanted to digress that before I come back to your question. The reason is so many parents are in denial. So many guardians are in denial. The survey we did showed that quite a good proportion of Nigerians have had sex before the age of 15. And then, so to a parent, that might be those children now, they are not my own child, I'm sure of my child. So I want parents to engage their children, talk to them about Valentine. What does it mean? What does showing love mean? How do you show love with or without commitment? Discuss sexuality with your children. And the reason is this: when you don't discuss it with them, they get to learn about sexuality from sources that might not bring the message in the way you would have loved to bring it as a parent. All right? A young person can tell another young person, you may have not had sex, you're a Jew person. That means you're not a woman, that means you're not a man. If you want to be a woman, then you must get involved in sexual intercourse. But I'm sure if a parent wants to tell the child about sex, you want to tell him certain values, whether in your culture or in your religion, the person has to carry along. That is one. And then number two, I don't believe any parent wants any of his child to get down with any of the sexually transmitted diseases.
Oh, no.
So I suspected the parents would have said, well, do this, but if for any reason, which I don't approve of, you must get involved in sexual intercourse, please make sure you make your condom, use it. Because a lot of young people, there was a study that was done by the agencies who are supported by one of our partners. We found that young people will rather preserve their relationship or rather place it at a greater value to their health. Because they said, a girl or a young girl said, for instance, that rather than lose my relationship, I'd rather offer that sex. So you get what I'm trying to say. So they place value on that, their relationship. So if they must get involved in sex, let them make it safe. Let them use condom. If the person tells you I'm faithful to you, I don't want to believe so. Even in marriage, some people are not faithful. I talk more outside of marriage. So they must use condom every time. And then anytime, any round, they must use condom. So that is part of what we say. If they use it consistently and correctly, it tends to protect them. Sometimes when we talk this way, parents feel like we say, you are telling the young people, go and be having fun. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying quite a lot of them are already having fun. So if they're having fun, let's make it safe for them. And parents also step in to bring the values. Let's redefine what love means. Love, you hear words like love making. So when you're having sex or making love, is that what it really means? If there's no commitment, somebody does not take responsibility, again, because pregnant, the boy says, I don't know you. That kind of stuff. So we need to really teach young ones, and they also teach them to withstand peer pressures. This is the time to engage them in discussions. So I should expect any parents listening out there to call your children, especially your teenagers, ask them, what do you understand by Valentine? What do you understand by love? How do you show love? How do you protect yourself? Because in showing love, you don't protect yourself, then that's like suicide. All right.
Indeed.
So even in showing love, protect yourself. Yeah. So those are some of the narratives we want to put out there for people to listen. So now we must keep emphasizing. And good enough, yesterday was World Condom Day. So World Condom Day before the Valentine. So I expect any person that wants to drive on Valentine Day should have prepared, put gas in your car yesterday to make long distance journeys. Is that not so?
Right.
So you should have gotten your condoms ready if you must get involved in sexual intercourse before, the Valentine Day.
But advisedly, most preferable abstain, isn't it?
Abstinence, yes. Now, why I've had so many people talk about abstinence, they say it's not effective. It's not effective as per preventing transmission of disease. They say it's not effective because the people don't want to abstain. It's not really true. There are quite a lot of people that are abstaining. And you also ask yourself, why are young people not abstaining? It's also because we have not also helped them to form their identity. Abstinence should not only be looked at from the perspective of sexual intercourse. Young people go into drugs because of pressure, peer influence. So if we're able to engage with them, and I keep putting parents in the center of the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because if they're able to do so, the people are able to abstain from anything that can jeopardize the life of the child. So abstinence is very key and it's good. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Quite very interesting.
Yes, and very enlightening, really.
Right.
We appreciate you on the program. We thank you. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you very much.
Yes. We've been speaking with Dr. Daniel Ndukwe. He's the Deputy Director, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA. Well, with that, we've come to the end of the show for today.
Very, very, very interesting discussion today on the program. It's been quite interesting. If you've missed, you can catch up with us across all our social media platforms.
Once again, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
You celebrate responsibly. That's all we appreciate. Well, my name is Ayuba Ilya.
And I'm Zainab Bala.
We'll
see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Bye.